It's been 3 months and it's been wild. I've 26 male spent the last 4 years with my now ex-girlfriend 25 female in an on and off relationship. But we always kept seeing each other. Although to me personally I value the personal connection more than the official title relationship. We were in a good place. We were living together. And getting stuff done. The pandemic was hard and I ended up staying inside a lot. Which she understood, so she would often pick up groceries on her way home from work and such. She had been seeing a therapist for a couple of months. And they ended up prescribing SSRIs for her. Somewhere around February. After a couple of months of living together, I started noticing strange behavior. She seemed a lot more active and eager to do new and exciting things. All the power to her. So initially I didn't think much of it. One day in April, she told me she was going on a date. I asked her why she called it a date. But she said she was just going to do something fun outdoors with somebody. That was pretty strange, and eventually I noticed something was up. We sat down to talk and she said she wanted to do more fun stuff with me. Or at least spend more time together. I agreed. So we made a cozy setup and ended up talking. Snuggling. Watching a movie. And having a pretty romantic time. She said she was meeting that guy again the next day. I told her that I trusted her. And that I just didn't want her to have any intimate physical contact with him. But if she wanted to have fun and meet new people, that I wasn't going to stop her. She agreed and we made a pinky promise that night. The next day, she went to visit him. By dinner time, I still hadn't heard from her. So I texted her if she was coming home for dinner. No reply. I waited a bit. A couple of hours passed. It was getting pretty late. And she hadn't replied to my texts. Eventually, after I asked if one of our friends could reach her, she replied. I was stressing her out. She wanted some rest. And that she was staying there for the night. I reminded her of our promise. She responded, "Did I promise anything?" I was furious. I felt betrayed. She blocked me for the night. The next day, it took until 1 p.m. for her to text me. She told me she was going to be honest. She had sex with him. She said that when she got home, she didn't want any fights about it. She said she didn't regret it. I was disgusted. When she got home, around 10 p.m., I was dead silent. She walked into the room. I was expecting something to happen. But I could never expect what happened next. She came in and started to cry. But not because she was sorry or because she felt remorseful. No. He rejected her. Turns out the dude wasn't over his ex yet. Apparently. My texting made her feel unsafe and gave her a panic attack that night. I guess he took advantage of that. I didn't know what to do. My mind was absolutely ducked. She just betrayed all the trust we built over our 4 years together. And in exchange she broke her own ducking heart. And I suppose she expected me to feel bad for her. Inside, I was mad. But I also pitied her. She was being very impulsive and reckless. I couldn't believe I was supposed to console her. And after a long silence and careful consideration, I ended up crawling beside her in the bed, instead of sleeping on the couch. Everybody deserves a second chance. This never happened before. And I knew she was having a rough and confusing time. I cared deeply about this girl. The day after, she attempted very hard to make amends. Would cook anything that I wanted. Made some delicious cheesecake. And we had some decent talks about everything. I thought we could grow from here. And get to know each other even better. However, what happened was that eventually, we grew further apart. She was constantly working. And in the weekends she was outside the house working on her side job. Or hanging out with friends. Again. At first I thought nothing of it. Until I started noticing it. She was never at home anymore. And whenever she got home we pretty much immediately got into fights. I was always high that late at night. And she was always very on edge. Eventually, she told me she was in love with about 3 people. She started telling me strange things. That she could talk with her friends telepathically. That she could feel energies. She could speak to her deceased grandfather who was watching over her, together with a couple of angels. She had evidence of these things and wanted to show me that evidence on her own initiative. Her evidence had little substance, and her demonstrations failed to deliver her desired results. She started blaming me for it. I was just too negative to see it. I wasn't open for it. She was not some circus clown that could perform on demand. Whenever I tried to reason with her, or when I told her that she was hurting me with what she said, or that I was worried, we just ended up escalating into a fight. I was the one with the problems, not her. I started getting worried about this behavior, and I looked up her SSRI medication. Turns out it has the potential to increase manic tendencies. And that said mania could, in extreme cases, lead to hospitalization and/or psychosis. One evening, during dinner, she suddenly dropped a bomb. She installed a dating app. She found a couple of dudes. She wanted me to leave the house. Either I left, or she would pack her stuff and stay at an anonymous friend's house tomorrow, until she could move out. I told her I wanted to stay and talk to someone who was involved in her therapy treatment and medication. Thankfully, she agreed and said that if I could write a letter, she would hand it to him. I wrote the letter addressing my concerns. The next day, she packed her stuff and left. And apparently she gave her psychiatrist the letter. Apparently, they said they didn't think it mattered for this stage of the treatment, so they didn't even read it. I knew something was seriously wrong. This was not her. She blocked me everywhere until a couple weeks after. My friend called me that my ex was involuntarily hospitalized for a psychotic episode. I thought she'd want to see me for support because I knew she was scared. But apparently she found a new boyfriend. She specifically instructed everybody to leave me out of everything, because I was stalking her and defaming her. In reality, I was trying to contact some of her closest friends and her father about my worries. Fast forward 3 months later to now. She got released and is in an official relationship with this guy. She still thinks I am obsessed by her in some way and stalking her, because I am carefully trying to reach out to her. I feel absolutely ducked. I've been doing my own thing and getting back on my own track, but the grief doesn't leave me. She doesn't remember anything that happened, only the negative stuff. Her rebuilding has been without my presence, but with the presence of a stranger from a dating app. I feel powerless. I wanted to be there for her. I can't believe that this is what she truly wants. I want to dig her up and talk to her about what happened, but that strengthens her distrust of me. But at the core, our trust is utterly destroyed. We can only rebuild it if she wants to do that herself. And even then, my trust is in pretty rough shape. I don't know what will happen from here. I feel like I want to forgive her. She doesn't really care about me anymore. If I never contact her again, she'd be fine. Maybe that changes when she recalls what happened, if that's possible. Or maybe she already gave it a place and moved on. She went through a lot. I am scared we will drift apart even more. I don't want her to keep this negative view of me for the rest of her life. She seems more and more like her old self, but she doesn't show much interest in me. Besides, she has a new boyfriend. I know this is more of a mental health topic, but at its core, a lot of this came from the infidelity. I honestly think you need to start therapy too. The non-relationship that you two had was toxic from any point of view. You cannot fix people. For that, there are professional and specialized people. She doesn't care about you, and your behavior is obsessive. Please cut all the ties that tie you to her. You must go on with your life. She already decided that she doesn't want you in her life. Why do you insist on being the knight in shining armor? Don't you see the state you are in? I sincerely wish you the best. One last thing. Take a test for STD. Good luck. Doesn't sound like there is a we anymore. Move on and stop contacting her. You're only hurting yourself if you don't. I couldn't believe I was supposed to console her. And after a long silence and careful consideration, I ended up crawling beside her in the bed, instead of sleeping on the couch. Dude, Yeah man. Sad and lonely. I had a real weak spot for her. You are obsessed with her. You're letting her control your thoughts, and it sounds like she's moved on. You should too. What a toxic relationship. The fact you rug-swept her randomly cheating on her, and you being her second choice to even get to this next episode is mind-boggling. Cut all ties with anything and everyone associated with her, and spend a ton of time and introspection on what you're doing in life. You are making some very poor decisions on a person who hasn't treated you like you're important to them in a long time. Please focus on your own healing and happiness. You're completely in the wrong state of mind here. I have to admit that. Considering the vagueness of the official status of our relationship at that point, I am not even that mad about the cheating. I don't think she saw it as cheating. And I can understand why. To me, I didn't suspect anything was wrong. We were living together. I was making money from home. She had a nice job. We did nice things. I thought we were going somewhere. But what pains me is that we had a very real and very intimate talk the day before, where we trusted each other. We could always talk about this stuff. And we would always respect each other. And she forgot all about that the day after. I believe she actually literally didn't remember Pinky promising me. Her medication made her forgetful. And much to my dismay, she was consuming cannabis in combination with it. I can't stop her from doing that. She's a grown woman. She knew how I felt about it. Though, I don't think she hasn't cared about me in a long time. Here's the thing, our relationship was on-off because I was the one turning it off. I found myself needing my own space a lot. And slowly building trust. While she was infatuated by me. And was always in a rush and hurry to kick everything off. If anything, she hasn't cared about me since the moment she broke that promise in April. I suppose it is a fairly long time. But yeah, it certainly turned into a real crap show real fast. It was a crap show the first day she cheated on you and cried that her first affair partner rejected her. Everything else is a slow degrade into absolute madness, but you're just as guilty for letting it get there after the first incident. The fact you didn't hold her accountable at all after that incident just boggles my mind. You need help to recognize healthy and unhealthy behaviors, because this just way too far into toxicity. It's almost absurd. And you're still defending it. I did hold her accountable. But she just didn't really care. Well, sometimes she seemed to care. But not every day. Her intentions and her actions never lined up. And her actions had consequences. We talked about this thoroughly. But she either forgot or didn't care. I know this shit is toxic as duck, but it's also seeing a loved one become confused and afraid. And fall into a pit of chaos while detaching from reality. I've been posting my story on mental health subreddits. But it's good to hear the opinions and advice of a different crowd. Leave her be seems to be a commonly agreed upon action to take. I specifically want to forgive her. Because I grudge her. And I grieve her. And I miss her. And I want to let go of all this negativity. But I can't fool myself. I can't truly forgive her until I know for certain that she chose all of this herself. And that it wasn't her delusions. What consequences did they have? You continued a crap show relationship with her that degraded further. Your codependency here is clouding your judgment on things. From the outside looking in, you should have walked away immediately when she willingly cheated on you and then cried when rejected. Instead, you invested further by comforting her then and here years later. What about your own emotions? Do you realize how much you're drowning yourself? And you're letting it happen. Don't try to save someone who can't swim if you can swim yourself. Save yourself first and foremost. Put this entire episode in your past and focus on some serious healing and self-reflection on just how bad the codependency is. Second story. My boyfriend of 5 years cheated on me in the very beginning of our relationship. I still cannot get over it. But now it's 5 years later, and I don't know what to do. 5 years ago, I started dating a boy. We will call him John. I was 18. He was 20. In the first few months of our relationship, we didn't hang out often. As I preferred hanging out with my friends at the time, I was a wild 18 years old, and both of us lived with crazy family members, so we couldn't go to each other's houses. Neither of us had cars. Either. So we hung out when we could. which I was fine with. But I always knew he wanted to spend more time together. 1.5 months into dating. He cheats on me. Typical, got too drunk at the bar. He did tell me though. Which was nice. But I kept poking around asking why me. 'Cause he had never cheated on anyone else before. And had been previously cheated on himself, so I figured he wouldn't have cheated as he understood the pain. He wouldn't give me answers. So I finally pulled out the whole "is it because she's prettier than me?" And while he never told me yes, he never told me no. He basically said, well, everyone looks different, and that's okay, which was basically him saying he did it because she was prettier than me. I forgave him, thinking to myself, I'll get over it. It was just the beginning of the relationship, and we barely spent time together anyways. For context, he is a very sweet guy. Him cheating was so random. Even to him. He's apologized so many times and has overall been an amazing boyfriend since then. I have no complaints about him. If this hadn't have happened cheating, I would consider us perfect. He's literally almost everything I'd want in someone. Which is why this is bothering me so much. I just wish he complimented me more sometimes. Fast forward 5 years later. And I still can't get over it. The cheating I can get over. It's the fact that he pretty much admitted to doing it because of how she was so pretty. Prettier than me. I recently brought up how it still bothers me. And how it bothers me that he basically inferred it was because she was pretty. He said sorry and everything. Told me he loved me, etc. But I was really hoping he'd have said something along the lines of I didn't mean she was prettier than you or something, I don't know. This sounds so stupid now that I'm typing it out. I don't think I have ever talked about this with anyone. I find it embarrassing. But yeah. For the last 5 years I've just felt really ugly and not good enough. He never compliments me or anything. Not that I ever dress up or anything, lol, but sometimes I feel like maybe if he made me feel beautiful, I wouldn't think about what he said 5 years ago so much. Thanks for listening. And please, no judgment about how I should have left him 5 years ago. Maybe I should have. But we were good friends before dating, so it was hard to make that decision at 18 years old. I'm now 23, and he is 25. We have 2 animals together under both of our names. I will outline your future in a few ways since you don't want advice. You could stay with someone whose actions 5 years ago still have a negative impact on you. Or you can decide you want better for yourself and move on. So what if you have 2 pets together? The pets can go with you. Stay with him. Or be split up. Who does most of their care? They should be the one who keeps the pets. I know I wouldn't give up more time in my 20s dwelling on the past. And since I would personally never get over being cheated on, I would leave. The choice is yours. If you decide to stay, you are deciding to continue to let the negative that comes with your boyfriend drag you down. I don't see why anyone would do that. But you and I may just be very different people. Leave unless you want to be in an unhappy relationship and or marriage your whole life. Eventually it will turn into resentment. Third story. My 19 female boyfriend 19 male cheated on me with multiple women from the beginning of our relationship and doesn't have an answer as to why. We had been together a year and about 4 months and were planning on getting engaged in the spring or fall. I found it all out recently. And we broke up, but I don't really understand why he would do all this if he acted serious with me from the beginning. I mean, he could have just not been with me and messed around while he's young. But he initiated everything in our relationship, from taking me out to talking about marriage. Most of the cheating was online messaging with girls. Found stuff from like just 2 months into our relationship sting one girl. And messages with 2 others for the next 2 months. But they didn't really respond back. Then there's a gap where he doesn't seem to be doing anything. Then 4 months later he's sting and texting and video calling this one girl who he spoke to for like 7 months and told her he wanted to marry her. That he loved her. And was in love with her, but she lived across the world and he met her on Omegle. So I am not sure how that could have been serious. He also sexted her and told her about his family problems and other personal stuff. He also lied to her a lot though. We were also long distance at one point for like 6 of those 7 months. He came back to our hometown. And I found out he also did something in person a month after coming back. He tried to make plans with a girl he used to work with. But she claims they didn't end up going out or anything. They made out in his car and then both blocked each other cause he felt bad about it, or so she and he both claim. And then the kicker is I found out he was texting some new girl flirting with her after we'd broken up. Oh, and he just admitted to making out with the girl. Everything else he just gave me his account info, and I found it myself. I don't really get it. It seems like he was looking at other girls the entire relationship. I also found he had been sending himself random profiles of girls. He keeps saying he is very sorry and can change. As cheaters do. He refuses and says that he is monogamous and that he loves only me and didn't mean any of other things he said to these girls and was probably just horny. I mean, if that's the case though. I was right here, lol. He seemed like such a nice person the whole time we were together. I really don't understand. Our relationship was very serious and we talked about marriage, and he had me meet his mother back in January, and I would text his mom and he would text mine. His whole family knew about me and wanted us to get married soon as well. I just don't understand. He was my first love and said I was his. Ever since I keep thinking about why he did this and trying to get details, and I don't know how to stop. I keep thinking if he could change eventually. As he keeps saying he wants to get back with me once he works on himself. I keep thinking how there's so much more he could have done that I will never know about. I am not sure how to stop these intrusive thoughts. Do not let him back in your life and go 100% no contact. He's a serial cheater and will never stop. He's a narcissist and self-centered. Why else would you cheat? You decide to cheat because you are thinking of how can I benefit from this or that. Not once will a cheater think about how would this affect others and his relationship. Thank you for your advice. Hit like if you enjoyed this video. Consider subscribing to our channel.